What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, if you're a fan of revenge stories, this is the episode for you. Today I have for you 7 stories from r/TraumatizeThemBack, one of the best subreddits out there, where people get immediate revenge, and it's just so satisfying. So without further ado, sit back, relax, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. Let's get into it. I pretended to be gay so that 2 loudly homophobic guys would get arrested. This is a true story that happened a few years back. I'm sitting at a bar, 3 beers deep, with a group of heterosexual guys, I should add, friends that I hadn't seen in a while. 2 guys at the table next to us start using homophobic slurs for no reason, ranting about how gay people are disgusting, etc. Now, of course, we couldn't let that fly, and we asked them if they had a problem with it, and that we were in fact homosexual ourselves. The first guy suddenly jumps on my friend, breaks his glasses, and tips our entire table and drinks on the ground. To this day, we believe they were on some kind of drug, as they had a truly weird and aggressive behavior. The bartender, a 6 foot tall metal guy with a beard, arrives at the scene to hear, "This guy just jumped us because we are gay." The guy keeps being aggressive. The bartender immediately breaks his nose with a punch. The police arrive at the scene, the bartender corroborates our story, and the police arrest both guys. We had to testify at the police station so that my friend would get his new glasses reimbursed. We kept the same story all night, so the 2 guys got a hate crime charge. Well, there we go, a pretty chaotic start to this episode, but goodness me, that is the justice and the outcome that we all wanted to see. I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you. It would be very strange if these guys weren't on some sort of drug. I mean, the way they've acted there is just absolutely insane. I mean, being homophobic is one thing, but then jumping on someone who says they're gay, maybe they just are like that, and I know people like that do exist, but that seems a little bit extreme. Nonetheless, though, I can't believe people like this do exist, and thank God that they're getting charged. I would actually love to know, and let me know in the comments down below if you know. What can I expect? What can we expect these people to get charged with? Like, are they going to go to prison? Are they going to have to do community service? Are they just going to have to pay a fine? Will they kind of get off? I have no idea. Let me know if you know in the comments down below. Whatever the punishment is, it should be worse. Let's move on. Made my racist co-worker uncomfortable after he made a joke? Oh well. I am a 23-year-old woman, and I've been at my job for about a year. I'm one of the youngest in my department, and one of the few women of my background. I usually ignore workplace banter. But one co-worker, Stephen, who is 34, has a habit of making subtle comments that don't sit right with me. At first, it was small things. He'd ask where I'm really from, or joke about how I must be great at handling spicy food. I never made a big deal out of it. But last week at lunch, he decides that apparently I am lucky they probably needed to hit their diversity quota. I'm guessing he always does this sort of thing, because everyone let out a good old chuckle. I almost hesitated. Then I let it go, and I said, maybe, but it's crazy how I got promoted so fast, whilst you've been in the same role for like 10 years? Maybe they have a quota for that, too. I'm guessing everyone got uncomfortable because the room went dead silent. You could hear the clock on the wall almost. Stephen looked at me like a kicked dog and said that he was just joking. I didn't really care to hear it, so I just smiled. Later, my manager told me that Stephen felt humiliated and that I should have been more professional. I said I responded the same way he spoke to me. Yeah, Stephen, feeling humiliated, and you should be more professional in the office. Look in the mirror, mate. Go into the gents and look in the mirror. What are we doing here? Stephen said that he was just joking with you. Well, why didn't you just say to him, I'm just joking with you, man. How do you like it? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Also, it's not really that he's just joking, is it? Because it's just racist, or xenophobic. I don't know exactly what your background is, but I can probably guess from what he's saying about, where are you really from and handling spicy food, that it is just disgustingly racist. So it's not even joking in the first place. It's just racist. Now, if you like stories about racists getting completely destroyed, the next one is one that you're going to love as well. My dad claimed to be Mexican and severely humbled a lady. My mum and dad were at my mum's company Christmas party years back. There were drinks flowing, and in the elevator on their way to gather her things with a few colleagues, a lady started to go on a rant about Mexicans. A little bit of a theme in this one so far. You can imagine what she said, and none of it was flattering. My dad has black hair. He also worked outside very often and was quite tanned still, despite it being winter. Mind you, his heritage is straight up English and Irish, maybe a hint of German. He listens to her rant while the elevator moves, and just before they got off, turns and says, "My dad is Mexican." This lady went dead white and stumbled over herself trying to apologize. She proceeded to apologize to my mother for about 6 months. Every person in the elevator, aside from this lady, knew that my dad was not at all Mexican. Some of them were though, so all of them refrained from telling her that he lied. She ended up leaving the company, believing that she'd mortally offended her co-workers, actually supervisors, if I remember correctly, husband, with her racist ranting. And I hope she thought twice before she opened her mouth again. I don't think she should have had to leave the company there, guys. I think she should have been fired. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter if anyone's Mexican or not. Someone should have reported her. That's crazy. Now, what's great is that people in the comments here are saying, as a Mexican, your dad is officially an honorary Mexican now. So he's doing the God's work. And he is standing up for Mexicans and also just minorities in general that do suffer racist abuse. Just like this, once again, just pure xenophobia. I don't really get why people like this exist. And I'm sorry, I've got to double down. Like, it should not take someone to be a fake Mexican to get this lady to leave the company. And it shouldn't take her to leave the company. Like, anyone in that elevator should have just said, you know, this is what just happened. One person corroborates it. I mean, ideally everyone, but all you need is one person. And surely she's gone. Like, you can't have someone like that working at a company. It doesn't matter how good they are at their job, like, at all. Or if anyone Mexican was in the lift or not. It's just racism. Get her out of there. It's actually pretty disgusting that she left seemingly on her own terms. Ridiculous. Also, why was she just upset when she got caught? Like, so pretty much, if there had been no Mexicans in the elevator and everyone would have agreed with her and said, yeah, you know what, you're so right, man, we hate them. She would have been like, yeah, we do. I hate them. But no, because one person was actually Mexican, or at least claimed to be Mexican, she then felt upset about it. What if other people in the elevator weren't Mexican themselves, but I don't know, had Mexican friends or people they knew that were Mexican? Like, this woman is so stupid that she felt sorry because somebody was Mexican, but didn't feel sorry because of what she said in the first place to people that she thought weren't Mexican. I don't know. Dumb woman, get her out the company. Why does she get to work from home and I can't? At my job, we're supposed to be in the office a couple of days a week. I'm in almost every day, as that's my preference, while others stick to their work from home days quite strictly, which is also fine. But I have one colleague who I work with closely that previously came into the office, but now gets to work from home full time. And I'll add that she is great at her job and a joy to work with. Slowly, it was noticed by a few people that she was never in the office, and they started making comments how it was strange, she was lucky, she must have found a reason for an exemption or has some sort of special arrangement. They would look at me and wait for me to say something negative or complain, but I wouldn't say much other than that she works from home due to personal reasons, as it's not my info to share with others, and she is always available virtually if people need to meet or chat about a project. We were having a larger Teams meeting recently, and one of these nosy Nancys raised it in a passive-aggressive way, saying how she hasn't seen her in ages and she's always at home, and it would be great to see her in the office sometime, as their team all have to be in a couple of days a week. I sat there just sipping my tea, while my co-worker dropped the bomb that her husband has been having seizures due to a rapidly growing brain tumour, and he can't be left alone. She went on to add how she wishes she could get out of the house more often, but can't even leave for coffee or groceries unless one of the kids is home, or she can get a friend or family member to stop by, and that the other option was to go on leave, but she felt like it would be a burden to the team and she can still get the work done from home. Let's just say the horrified looks people had and the awkward silence has ensured that hasn't come up since. Yeah, good. That is just what you want to see from this sort of story. People that are just being too nosy, getting it. Now, don't get me wrong. I probably, like at first, if I was a part of this person's team and they were never in and I didn't hear any explanation, I might be like, oh, how come they're not coming in? Like, we got to come in every day. What's going on here? But I feel like after about 1 minute of thinking about it, I'd probably think to myself, oh, yeah, there's probably a reason here that they're not coming in. And especially when someone says it's a personal reason to you, then you definitely do not bring it up. But I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I understand why people would be like, oh, where is she? But then surely you have a conversation and think, something's probably at play here. And then you just do not ask ever, and you just leave it be. Ultimately, if she's still employed by the company, still doing her job well, which is amazing given the circumstances, who are you to question what's going on? Or if she just has months of unpaid leave and isn't there. Again, you can't say, it's a disgrace, unless you know what's going on isn't something like this. But yeah, I mean, like, I suppose the main point is just chill out and just don't like go meddling when you don't need to. I hope that your co-worker OP and her family are doing better, because what a terrible thing to be going through. Not helped by her colleague saying, where are you? It's unfair. Come into work right now. I'd rather have them safe. Years ago, I was struggling with keeping everyone safe on a trip to town. I had a couple of kids on feet and one in a wheelchair. The two on feet were absolutely determined to run away anytime my back was turned. As it happened, there was a pet store right next to the fabric store I needed to go to when one of the kids made a break for it into the parking lot. Instead of heading to the fabric store, I grabbed said child, plopped him on top of the kid in the wheelchair with instructions to not move a muscle, and I headed to the pet store instead. When we got inside, I headed straight to the leash and collar aisle, and I started the process of fitting the two on feet for harnesses and leashes. The kids thought this was a great adventure, and I even let them pick out their own colours. Then here comes some old Bitty with her pocket dog. She started out with just huffing and sighing, but within about 30 seconds, she evidently couldn't control herself any longer. That's the most cruel thing I've ever seen, treating children like dogs. From my crouched position, I replied, well, I'd rather have them treated like dogs than hit by a car. And I went back to fitting the harness that I was working on. All she could come up with was, well, I guess. The kids got their harnesses and leashes. I got my fabric. Nobody got hurt. Later on, when we went to Disney, we had people stopping us and offering up to $100 for the harnesses. Nope, sorry. You can hit up the pet store for your own. Okay, what I will say is, reading this story, I was a little bit surprised by the fact that you, OP, went into a pet store to get your kids a lead and a harness. I'm presuming, by the way, that these aren't harnesses and leashes for kids, unless pet shops actually have these things for kids. I doubt they do. However, actually, maybe it's thinking on your feet. Very clever. And as you can see by the people in Disney who were probably like, whoa, that's a good idea. You've done well. I just can't get over the fact that your kids are wearing dog harnesses. Again, I might be wrong. If pet shops do have harnesses and leads for kids, I'm pretty confident they don't, because the clue's sort of in the name of the shop. But anyway, I completely agree with you. Like, it's better that they're safe. However, I would think it's a bit strange, like, that they're just knocking about in a dog harness. Now, if they were in like a normal kids harness, I would say 100% yes. And I have absolutely nothing against kids wearing harnesses with a lead on. You know, it's not like the best thing to see, because you'd be like, oh, well, they're human. It's not ideal. But also they are a young child who could easily just run into a road and die. So yes, I completely agree with you. I'd rather have them safe as well. However, this woman, I mean, I honestly, I can't like say she's like completely in the wrong, because like, imagine you're just walking along and you see two kids in dog harnesses with a leash. Again, they might not be dog harnesses. I'm happy to hold my hands up if they're not. But I'd be like, okay, what's going on here? So this is probably the one story that I've read so far where I'm a bit more like, well, whatever. You know what? Let me just look this up, right? Leash and collar pet store for kids. It's like, do they do that? They can't. No, it's all pet collars. I'm not being an idiot here, am I? I guess a kid could wear... This is the thing. Actually, like, is a dog harness... Would it not fit on a kid? I mean, it's pretty similar. You just put your arms through it. Maybe I take it back somewhat. Maybe it wouldn't look that weird. And also, I have to remember this. The kid doesn't have to walk on all fours like a dog. It's a great point there. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. Another post reminded me of my blind friend's story about getting her eyes examined. A friend of mine is BLIND blind, like both eyes removed as a toddler with no memory of vision blind. She has prosthetic eyes for both appearance and maintaining the sockets. I'm not exactly sure what it means, but apparently it can cause problems not having orbs in the orbital sockets. She told me the story of how once she went into her eye doctor, obviously to check on her sockets and other anatomy, not her eyes, and the new to her assistant that checked her in asked her to do a routine vision check. I'm completely blind, she told the assistant. Oh, we know, but just so we can get a proper exam of your eyes, we need a record of your vision. My friend kept insisting she was so very, very blind. The assistant kept insisting they needed the exam to check on her eyes. Finally, fed up, my friend popped out one of her prosthetic eyes and held it out to the assistant and said, "Here, now you can examine it all you want." The doctor was apparently apologetic. I asked why her guide dog wasn't a giveaway. She hadn't brought her, as it was just easier to have her husband take her. I don't know how her needing the assistant to guide her to the room wasn't a hint, but, well, I guess she figured it out eventually. Now, this sort of story I do not get at all, because I would feel like as soon as you go in to an optometrist or whatever they're called, I've forgotten the word, and you check in or whatever and you say, yeah, I've got an appointment, then they ask for your name, and then surely immediately your information comes up with the fact that you are blind and you have 2 prosthetic eyes. So the assistant knows that. If you're brand new and your prosthetics are really good and you say, I'm blind, and you don't actually actively explain, I have 2 prosthetic eyes, I don't really, the assistant can just say what she said and that's all right. You haven't actually, when you say you're completely blind, I don't know. I kind of get it from the assistant. She might be like, well, we'll just do an examination for other reasons of your eye, etc., etc. Because completely blind, I mean, that is completely is a subjective word when someone is telling it to you. However, if you just said to them, I have 2 prosthetic eyes, then she would have been like, okay, well, obviously you can't see. However, I feel like it should have just been on your records anyway. The eye test itself would have been very funny, and I kind of feel like you should have just gone through with it and just taken the mick. Imagine the person or the assistant or the doctor saying, read me the 3rd line on the chart as far down as you can. And you go, what chart? And they're like, the one on the wall. What wall? The one in this room. What room? I don't even know where I am, because that is how blindness works. I mean, I'm not being an idiot, but I do feel like the assistant asking for just a basic vision test, and again, unless she has the information on her screen in front of her, which she should have done, isn't that crazy of a suggestion? If someone said to me, I'm deaf, completely deaf, and I said, okay, let's do a hearing test, that's not that stupid, because we could be checking for other things at the same time, or pressure, etc., etc. I'm not trying to let the assistant off. I just think that without the information of I have 2 prosthetic eyes, which you didn't actually say, according to this, it's not the most crazy thing ever. I know you guys would disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I just feel like, just say I've got 2 prosthetic eyes. There you go. Now for our final story of this one. Unsolicited family planning advice didn't get him an answer he liked. A couple of months ago, I went out to visit my parents and some family for the holidays. I took an evening to go and visit my aunt and her husband during our trip. Now, I love my aunt's husband. He's a fantastic and loving dad and grandfather, and has always been one of my favourite people. He's pretty solid in his religious faith, but it translates into love, and he supports their family in a way that I've always been envious of. Both my kids are unplanned, having been told before the first that I couldn't have kids, and then my youngest is here despite 3 birth control methods failing, including a condom, Plan B, and a month of the patch. We had another pregnancy less than a year after my youngest was born from failed birth control that I terminated, and my partner went for a vasectomy a month after that. My partner and I currently pay more in daycare than our mortgage, and our oldest also has an autoimmune condition. We have no familial support system. We're just barely making it financially and mentally, so we have decided that our youngest is definitely our last. During this visit, my aunt took my oldest to go work on her Lego advent calendar, while I chatted with her husband, Paul, in the living room, and my toddler played with the dogs. We discussed how cute my little one was, and Paul asked if we were having any more. Now, all my family knows how my last pregnancy ended. I'm not ashamed of it, so he actually already knew this before asking. I told him, no, my 2 were more than enough, and my partner is sterile now. We don't have the support or funds to care for another without making the 2 we have suffer. He said, you never know, the next one could be an angel. And I shot back before I could catch myself. Technically, the next one is an angel. Oh, wow. What a line, by the way. That might be one of the best single lines of rebuttal I've ever heard. That just sums up this subreddit so well. Wow, that is just 7 words that are just plucked from heaven, for want of a better phrase, but just pure perfection from OP. Sorry, that is just phenomenal. Anyway, we both had a cringe face for a moment, and then he quickly moved on to a new topic of conversation. I know he meant well because he loves his family and grandbabies. His family is everything to him. But it's like it didn't click that most people don't have a supportive family, and having kids these days is expensive and exhausting, even with support. Okay, and there we go. What a way to end this one. As I said, one of the most generational lines I've ever read, and I don't use the word generational lightly. Phenomenal stuff. Terrible from Paul, like absolutely terrible. The fact that he knew about you terminating your last pregnancy and still said that is disgusting. But also, I've got to say well done to you, because that is such a sensible decision you've made. Like, so many people, I feel like, do not give the required thought to having a child. And even when they've had a couple of children, they think, okay, I'll go again. And you know, you make such a good point about it affecting your children's lives if you have a third one, because, you know, you're not going to make any more money per se. So then, you know, 2 into 3 or the money you have for 2 kids is now being split into 3. That's a big difference. And I think if more people acted and thought like this, the world would probably be a better place. I'm not saying to not have kids, by the way. Like, kids are great. I will hopefully have kids myself, and I definitely plan to. But if it's financially going to be extremely challenging to give them the life that they need and deserve, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't do it. And I do think more people should think like that. Fair play to you, OP. Paul, you're a gimp. And I'll catch you when you're older, just like all of you guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you want more Traumatize Them Back stories right away, episode on screen. If you're new to the channel, subscribe over here. Look at my massive arm as well. Size of it. And you can only see that if you're on YouTube. And I'll catch you on the next one.